Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. Now, World Lupus Day is commemorated on May 10th by the World Lupus Federation to unite lupus groups around the world during Lupus Awareness Month and call attention to the impact that the disease has on millions of people globally affected by lupus. And this morning, we are joined by a mother-daughter duo, Tracy and Helen, or Helen and Tracy Pair, who are both living with lupus. Ladies, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us. Helen, I'm going to come to you first. Just to provide some context, tell us exactly what lupus is.
Lupus is called an autoimmune disease. In a nutshell, basically, your body attacks itself. Your body is not your friend, right? Symptoms are wide-ranging. I have been lucky. I have had some really bad days, but generally, this is the best part of me you're seeing. After years of not knowing the diagnosis, finally getting a diagnosis does make a difference. At least you have a name and you can do research and you can, find ways to exist.
Yes.
But it affects people in so many different ways. Hair loss, skin rash, unexplained rashes, fever, days where you just don't feel well. You can't pinpoint it, you can't call a name, but it's like, okay, put on my good face and you go out and you do what you have to do, but you just feel like crap and you just want the day to end and get back home. Yeah. But this is a lifelong thing. I was diagnosed after almost 9 years of not knowing what was wrong. So it takes a while. Repetitive blood tests, to see a pattern, that sort of thing. Yeah. And yeah, I was diagnosed since 91, but my symptoms started in 81. So there was a whole gap of not knowing what exactly is really wrong with me.
With you?
Why do I go out and the sun is not your friend?
Yes.
You go into a hot car and it's like literally as if the sun is coming into you, and then they put you on medicine and you gain weight and people don't understand and people see you and they say, oh, but she's looking fine, she's exaggerating or what.
Well, that's the thing, because lupus is, apart from the rashes that you mentioned, you ladies look wonderful this morning. And so nobody would guess that you're living with this autoimmune disease, as you said, Helen, something that attacks your body. And so how do you get people to be aware of this very serious disease if there are no noticeable symptoms on you?
Yeah. Basically it's by your association, your co-workers. Eventually people will notice let's put it this way, when you're good, you're very, very good. And when you're bad, you're horrid. So I had days where literally, before diagnosis, the children were in primary school, and I would remember getting to the schoolyard and literally saying, I hope they find me because I can't walk. My feet are hurting. There were days when I had 2 different size shoes because the one I put on in the morning would not fit in the afternoon. And you would stand and you would literally feel your ankles in pain. Yeah. And I'd be like, Lord, just let them find me because I can't move.
Tracy, I want to come across to you because is it that lupus would have been something that was passed on? Is it familial lupus, they call it? And so how would you have gotten that from your mom? And you thankfully had your mom to guide you throughout the process. But when you first got the diagnosis, what were your thoughts?
Well, I presented pretty severely when I first started showing any signs. I know my mom was out of the country and I do things pretty dramatically. So I, passed out in the middle of the night, fell, hit my head, was taken immediately to St. Clair, where I was in ICU for 5 days. Yeah.
Spent an Easter vacation
and
in
mommy,
ICU.
you were out of the country.
Yeah. So I came back to, we just have to stop in St. Clair for a minute here.
Oh, wow.
So, and because my mom has lupus and my aunt had sickle cell anemia, which are both autoimmune diseases, they kind of knew what to look for in my case. So my diagnosis was, in addition to how severely I presented, it was easier to come to. And
so it was passed on from mom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. I was 15, yeah.
So you would have gone up to that period of time without any symptoms, or were you showing symptoms before, but you were diagnosed at that point in time?
Well, not severe symptoms. So I used to play football a lot. So I would be in the sun and I would just think, I'm a bit dizzy or
dehydrated.
I'm dehydrated. Yeah, I'm just training really hard. But when I did present, it was like, bam, I'm here.
So then how were you able to, move on with your life? Because you seem to be very active, right? In the sun playing football, you get the diagnosis. How did your life change from that point until now?
Wow. Pretty significantly, because I mean, you're 15, you don't expect this diagnosis. And when I came out of the hospital, I was also several pounds heavier from the steroids, the, the swelling, just everything that was going on. So I couldn't play football as often. I had to take medicine daily now, still not sure what is going on. And like my mom said, there are days where you're just not feeling 100%, but I'm also 15, 16 years old. I'm supposed to be active and so it definitely took some getting used to. I mean, it's embarrassing to say it now, but I remember throwing medicine away because I'm like, this is not me. This is not who I am. I'm not this chronic medicine taker, sick person, leave me alone. Yeah. So it definitely took its toll psychologically at that age, to get used to it. And then growing into myself, I was sick all through university. I remember them wanting to bring me back home. While I was doing my master's, I was still ill, but you have to keep going, it seems like cliche to say it, but you have no choice.
I want you to speak more to the acceptance, and I'm saying that because I know there are people who are looking on now who may, like you, be throwing away the medicine and telling themselves, this is not who I am. Yeah. And so how were you able to overcome that hurdle and say, this is a part of my life now, I need to cope?
I think it was definitely the family support that I had, understanding not necessarily what I was going through, but at least understanding more of the condition, what I can and cannot do. I saw my mom with it, and I was like, okay, well, my life isn't over. Yes. It doesn't come to a halt here, but the acceptance was difficult. And I think given how different everyone's experience is, it can be different in that way as well. I did not present with these skin rashes my edema was mainly from the hospital and the steroids, but I was still outwardly okay. And I remember my aunt saying one time, once you look okay on the outside, you'll be okay on the inside. And this is as we're crossing ways in the hospital. So I definitely have my family and my friends to thank for being able to just keep going.
Helen, I'm coming back to you because Tracy mentioned the steroids and things that you take. Just educate us in terms of what sorts of medicines or some medications that people should be taking if they have been diagnosed with lupus.
Well, I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to give you a list
Tell
of
me your personal
things.
experience, yes.
Mostly the steroids. That little tiny pill becomes your friend, unfortunately. That was the mainstay. But of course, lupus attacks different organs in your body. So according to which organ is impacted, then your regimen will be different, right? I have, mercifully at this stage of my life, my real thing is painkillers. Because in the early days, they told me I was arthritic. So you have joint pains, if it's your knee, your ankle, or whatever. So at this stage, I'm really about pain management.
So what I'm hearing as well, is it that there's going to be different stages of lupus as you get older?
I would say so because, for example, when I was much younger, when the children were much younger, it was more active.
Right.
For me right now, this is a good place. I can deal with a headache, I can deal with an ache or pain because I know what it is to be in the hospital and not know what is going on. Tracy's scenario, for example, lupus has affected her kidneys, which is a common organ. For some reason, lupus seems to like your kidneys. I have never got to the stage Tracy got to. I've had instances, yes, where your feet start to swell and you have to go on specific medicines to address that. But, as I said, very different experiences. Tracy's lupus affected her kidneys, but in a whole other way. So I'll let her tell you that story.
Tracy, coming back to you.
So my lupus started affecting my kidneys pretty early on. So we knew it would get progressively worse, which it did. So I have actually been on dialysis and had a kidney transplant as a result of complications from lupus. So my experience with lupus is also now very different because I am more directly a kidney transplant recipient patient than a lupus patient.
Okay.
So I don't have, as I said, the outward signs of lupus, and I don't have the experience that a lot of lupus patients might have had. Most of my story is based on the complications to my kidney from the disease.
But do you still have to take medication for the lupus? For lupus or?
I think at this point, with my medicine, we've reached almost like a combination stage.
right.
Because I'm still on steroids, but I'm on an antibiotic because I no longer have a spleen, but I'm also on transplant medication to make sure that the organ isn't rejected from my sister, by the way, so thanks, Ria.
Good morning, sister. Thank you, Ria.
So at this point, it's about managing both.
Yes.
But I always feel like through the process of dialysis, it kind of calmed down my lupus. I think my body was like, okay, we have bigger fish to fry here.
Yes, wow. So a blessing and curse in disguise almost.
Yeah, almost, I would say, yeah, for sure.
I'm coming back to you for the final one, Helen, because I wanted to know, at any point in your time, so Tracy knew at 15, you knew older when the
Yes.
children were younger. At any point in time, did you think, why is this happening to me?
That's inevitable. That's inevitable. Because there were days when I would get up and again, not having a diagnosis makes it so much harder. You get up in the morning and you say to yourself, I have to get off this bed. I know it's going to hurt, but I have to get up. You have to go to the shower and you have to lift your foot to get into the shower and you know it's going to hurt. At the end of the day, it's all about mindset and you just have to talk to yourself. My dear sister Gwyneth Deceased would always say, put on your happy face and get on with life. And we have mastered that art. A lot of people do not know we are sick. And there are days when, yes, you just go through the motions and people don't know. I have a headache, my knee is hurting me, my ankle is hurting me. But guess what? If I stay home, I'm in pain. So I might as well go out and be in pain.
And one more thing, Helen, that purple ribbon that you're wearing, this is to bring awareness as well to lupus, yes?
This is the lupus color.
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Well, ladies, thank you so much for coming this
Thank you
morning.
for
I
having us.
admire your strength and your passion and how you're bringing awareness to something that people can see as invisible. So keep on putting on your happy faces and showing the world your beautiful smiles. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Tracy, so much, and all the best
Thanks
in
for
all
having
your
us.
endeavors. You're on the Now Morning Show. We're going to take a break. I'll be right back. Stay with us.